Hello, my name is Maureen Underwood, and on behalf of the Mental Health Association of Monmouth County, I'd like to talk with you about successfully aging in place. For some of you, it may be a question that hasn't quite appeared on the horizon, but I'm hoping once it's in front of you, something I say may inspire you to think about it in a slightly different way. As you probably can tell by looking at me, I definitely have given this subject a lot of consideration. All you need to know about my age is that I don't have to take my shoes off at the airport when I go through TSA. And for those of you who may not know, the cutoff age is 75. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this topic, done some research to see what other folks have to say, and I've put together a few lessons I've learned that I'd like to share with you. To start, you may be wondering about the title, The Upside of Down. Like you, I've heard all those cliches about aging that try, rather tritely, to frame getting older in the best possible ways. Aging is like fine wine. You just get better with age. 60 is the new 40. And my personal favorite, but you've had a good life. I don't know about you, but they don't make me feel any better. Although I do think there are some ways to view aging in a light that's more positive. Which brings me to my first point. Successful aging doesn't depend so much on where you do it, but what you bring to it, who you are, and how you think about it. Yes, there are a couple of potential pitfalls I'll touch on, and then I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions to think about. The most important point about aging is how you think about it. Just like you, I read the AARP magazine, and one of the most common laments from seniors about successful aging is how much it costs. There are those few for whom finances aren't now and never were a problem, and then there's the rest of us. There are a lot of people better equipped than I to tell you about the best financial strategies for these golden years. But one thing I can tell you is, don't beat yourself up if you feel like your financial goals fall short. Do you have that voice in your head that says, oh, if we hadn't taken all those vacations, if we hadn't been so generous to our children, why did I buy that new car? You did all those things because you were living in the moment, making the best decision you could at the time. Don't beat yourself up for the choices you made when your focus in life was different, when you had more discretionary income. You'll figure the financial thing out. Maybe it'll be terrific, maybe it'll be just okay. But feeling bad about how you spent money in the past won't make it any better now. Actually, it will probably make it worse. Another pitfall may be the toll aging takes on our bodies. Again, some folks seem to get through unscathed. No, perhaps less scathed, while others of us have a cadre of doctors on speed dial. Many of us fall into that same trap of looking backwards. If only I'd exercised more. Why didn't I drink more water? Where did that stomach come from? It wasn't there yesterday. The first good news is that there are a lot of us in the same boat. About 49 million retired folk, according to the latest Social Security statistics. And you don't need to hear those numbers to know you're not alone. Have you ever gone out to dinner with friends and had someone ask to borrow your reading glasses to see the menu because they left theirs at home? Or they thought they brought them, but now they're not sure where they left them? And you have to discreetly point out they're on top of their head, which is where yours are too? Yeah, combine that reading thing with that memory thing, and it's a wonder most of us don't need guide dogs. But what most of us do have is the capacity to cope with the changes in our life that come with the aging process. Because one of the things we tend to forget is that our lives have always been about change, from leaving home and making it on our own, to finding a partner, starting a family, balancing budgets, keeping healthy. There were always a multitude of tasks we had to juggle, and even though we were much younger, we often went to bed tired and woke up hoping for an easier day tomorrow. And we've all had those days and months and maybe even years, I call them the years of the locusts, when everything seemed to fall the wrong way. Yet we made it through. Our memories tend to get stuck on those disastrous moments in our lives. I call them our Titanic moments because they feel like we are a ship that's been hit by an iceberg and we're sinking. The rest of the time, when the waters in our lives are calmer or less stormy, they tend to fade in comparison. Think about your own life. I bet you remember your Titanic moments without much effort, and the rest of your life, you probably don't even notice much about how it goes. I call that rest of your life your Olympic moments, after the Titanic's sister ship, the Olympic. You probably never heard of the Olympic because she sailed back and forth across the ocean for about 30 years, kind of peacefully. Nope, never sank, never made the history books. Well, those Olympic moments of our lives, the details of how we manage most of our days, they tend to fade pretty quickly, don't they? And yes, those Titanic moments can teach us about our coping skills in crisis, but those Olympic moments teach us about our living skills in getting through the days the best we can. And both of those lessons are really important to guide us in that process of successful aging. So let's look at a couple of other things that can make our aging just a little more successful. The first is embracing letting go. No new news here, but put the emphasis on the embracing part rather than the letting go, and see how that makes a difference in the meaning. Let's look at the definition of embrace: to hold closely in one's arms as a sign of affection. It doesn't mean throw away, get rid of, discard, or dump. It means to appreciate and honor the meaning that certain objects or things or relationships had in your life, to hold on to that essence or meaning, yet put them in the past and no longer carry that weight into the future. We may find it easier to let go of things we once valued and no longer need, like that antique china, or the books we've read 3 times, or the clothes we're never going to fit in again. It tends to be more challenging for all of us to let go of the things and the people who hurt us or let us down, which can sometimes fall back into that Titanic category. But I promise you, that's where we can really lighten our load and make enough road for the good stuff we want to carry into the future. Now, what we're going to take a look at are my last 2 suggestions for successful aging, which come from a remarkable study that began in the late 1980s on aging and longevity. It involved a unique population of 678 Catholic sisters who ranged in age from 74 to 106. The results are not anything new or startling, but they do confirm with data what we think leads to longer, healthier, and more meaningful lives. The study had a variety of findings, but what I want to call your attention to are 2 elements that the authors felt contributed greatly to the longevity of the nuns they studied. Most of these women lived past 100. The first is the power of community. Sometimes you find it in your marriage or your family, but it's equally effective if you get it from social groups, membership in clubs or churches, or even online groups where you feel seen and valued and supported. In the nun study, these women were part of a community that not only stimulated their minds and celebrated their accomplishments, but also encouraged their silences, understood their defeats, and nurtured them when they could no longer do it for themselves. Did they always like each other? Maybe, but most likely not. But they always respected each other as human beings. Most of us will not have that same gift of finding so much community in one place, but it's okay to cobble it together bit by bit and not be any poorer for it. The second dimension of living that the researchers felt contributed to the longevity of these women was, not unsurprisingly, their spirituality. They found their profound faith, coupled with a positive outlook on life, buffered the sorrows and tragedies all of us experience. Unfortunately, not all of us are as blessed with that kind of community that's in one simple place or that strong faith. But while only about 63% of the U.S. population currently report they have some religious or spiritual belief system, Data does support the fact that people become more involved with religion and their sense of spirituality magnifies with age. There's a wonderful quotation about the maturing of spirituality in a book that many of you may be familiar with, When Bad Things Happen to Good People, that was written by Rabbi Harold Kushner after the unexpected death of his young son. People who pray for miracles usually don't get miracles, he wrote, any more than children who pray for bicycles, good grades, or good boyfriends get them as a result of praying. But people who pray for courage, for the strength to bear the unbearable, for the grace to remember what they have left instead of what they have lost, very often find their prayers answered. Finally, I want to end with a lesson we hopefully learned many years back. We can't do it all. Back in the day when we had what seemed like boundless energy, our brains and our bodies were more flexible, and we were able to cram 10 pounds of flour into a 5-pound sack. I'm not saying it was the most efficient or the best way to live, but we could do it. Successfully aging in place, or aging with grace, requires we get into the practice of that art of letting go. Maybe only filling that bag with 5 pounds of flour and accepting that it's enough. Acceptance, coupled with gratitude for the lessons we've learned along the way, can set the stage for that successful aging process in whatever space life takes you. And if you keep your eyes open for it, you may find a little sliver of joy hiding and an Olympic moment in the lining of each day.